Some things.
Well, not that, but the rest of it. I can tell you just a little. Up to the. You try to operate, I'll tell you from this. That was me fulfilling that prediction.
Especially when you're in front of the, you know,
We'll keep coming to some of the meetings.
Yeah.
And still got a few of the need
hours on the beat.
We had fish cooked down for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Try not to keep
It can't be all that big, because he wants to be right back.
too much stock.
He wants to stay back. Stay out.
Right. Good. Yeah, and then you come back in a week or so after
Some
that.
people better run into down there in marijuana, they couldn't do it.
Give me prescription. So I'm taking it for 2 days on the surgery. And then stuff to also take an entrance. I just went to build, same thing that you taking your plan.
Yeah, the machine already had it. Yeah, plenty.
I went to 55 minutes.
Doing bad,
Down grade.
Oh,
you gotta be real careful,
that.
but you don't want that.
Anyway, I'm not good at remembering city terms.
That's what your wife would be.
Yeah. Or
See, I think
prescriptions.
the Oklahoma Constitution. Can't get it. Good. Copy to the Oklahoma Constitution. They keep sending you online. Well, the one online ain't correct. You know, and it's what you can't rely on. And he's got one of the lists was about 94, 95. Now, they just a little book about space size, but about that big.
Yeah.
And produced, they'll have to copy those bones. Well, it was in that stuff that I give, that was some, I gave it up. But I knew that every year, I was gonna come in handy. You know, basically.
Thin it out.
Well, there was a lot of works in there from the rest activity.
Even your own family, so
Yeah.
juniors get
Other
classification, but just access.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be involved. And
bunch of myths.
they can shut down things. Right off of this. These are gonna do is he's been on me back a couple of years. She won't be doing
Call better.
had to be this.
That's
I'm
all
there
he
to
needs.
he was 10, he was one of the serious fishing there.
You know, because,
We have to lose all of this.
you know, in fact,
Yeah.
They had to flash, just get he's 14 now, he's.
All our youth. Goodness.
Yeah. She likes to do
It's
His dad raised him.
see manuals on
His dad raised him. Shoot, he's a watch man. State breakfast there, kids are all beat by.
I think things like that
Be very helpful.
can be very helpful in stressful times. You know, and I had all that.
Well, I feel better today.
Maybe Terry could read it.
You know, I would, like I say,
I'm hoping it's not. See this one, he doesn't see it all.
get that out of the line.
This, you see exactly what lives in terms of. That's all it's.
You do it, right, things really hit the fans. It could be disseminated. That's terrible.
Yes. Oh, you get here.
3.5 minutes late. Never do that, but I was hoping this might be some more show-ups. But we are what we are. I want to thank everyone for coming. It's nice to know who my hardcore crowd is. This being the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend, I asked a couple of people. This wasn't a good time to get people in to speak. And of course, everybody here knows how much I hate to talk and how much I hate being the center of attention. So it's me this month. Before I get any further, next month, the fourth Saturday is Christmas Eve. So I'll expect to see everyone here Christmas Eve. Oh, wait a minute. No, I've moved the meeting to the third Saturday. So it'll be the 17th of next month. I'll put flyers out to remind everybody. But if you know anybody that comes and is not here today, if you talk to them, you might mention it to them. We had to do the same thing last year because it fell on Christmas Day. So I think if I had to do it again, I might not pick the fourth Saturday because in November, December, that's always an issue. But it is what it is. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving and had a good time with your family and friends. My sister, brother-in-law, and my uncle-in-law and I all went down to my cousins in Yukon and pigged out. We're coming up on our third anniversary for this chapter. January of 2020 was my very first meeting, and so we're one of the longer-term chapters in the state. I want to thank everybody for the support all this time. We're making a huge difference, and I'm going to be covering some of that in detail in this meeting. We're making a huge difference here in Oklahoma, which is where we're concentrating our efforts. Also, it'll either be this Friday or the next Friday at 7:00. I'll get the word out. You can rely on that. I interviewed for an hour on a podcast called The Conservative Continuum down in Oklahoma City here a week or so ago. And that will be showing, like I said, it'll be either probably next Friday or the Friday after it at 7 p.m. on the computer. I'll get the word out. Now, this will probably come as no surprise to anybody, but folks, we're in bad times in this country. It's almost impossible to believe how bad things have got. And it's been going on basically, well, it started with President Woodrow Wilson over 100 years ago, and it's been accelerating since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And they're in high speed mode the last couple of years. It's hard to believe this boys and girls bathrooms, child pornography in school libraries, the food supply issues, and I've made a lot of contacts with people in Western Oklahoma, and just about everybody out there is in the ag business one way or another. And they're all telling me that the food shortages are going to get a lot worse. A lot of the beef producers are dumping their cattle because they can't afford to feed them, and in some cases, they can't afford to water them. So there's a lot of beef available right now, but that's going to dry up at some point, probably in the near future. We've got inflation and this so-called 8-something% the government's telling us. I'll guarantee it's higher than that. And I'm sure we all see. I buy sunflower seeds at the store to put in my salad. 6-8 months ago, I was paying 99 cents. Now they're $2.68. Hello, Joe. And that's just an indication of what's going on everywhere. I buy sugar-free popsicles. They were $5. Now they're 8-something. Lean cuisines. I always paid like 90. I buy them on sale and get them for 99 cents. I was at the store yesterday. They were $5.09. I mean, so we've got the vax and the vax passports. There's starting to be talk that they're going to try and make a move on that again. Masks, they're pushing to bring the masks back, and there's been numerous scientific studies that the masks are useless. They're worse than useless. There's been a spike in Legionnaire's disease, because you get that from breathing bacteria. Well, you put a mask over your mouth. Within 10 minutes, it's loaded with bacteria because it's moist and you're exhaling bacteria. The medical system is a mess. Cancer deaths are up because people haven't been getting treated for the last couple of years as quickly as they were before because all the concentration. Hello. Come on in, have a seat. I saved you a seat, Suzanne. And who's this? Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Nice to meet you. Fuel, gas, diesel, and coal. There's a war on all fossil fuels. By the way, the stories that were out here a couple of weeks ago about there are 29 days left of diesel. Hello, Harold. Got you a seat right here. Thanks for coming. Yeah. It's only $5 worth to come in late.
Worth that.
Yep. What the stories about the 29 days worth of diesel left, that is if they stopped production right now. That doesn't mean we're going to run out of diesel in 29 days because they're still in production. However, that's the lowest that reserve has been in probably 15 or 20 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a limited supply of diesel. So it's never like, oh, we got, 300 days.
Well, no, I know. Yeah.
But it's the lowest it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Push for electric vehicles. California. Oh, I forgot the prayer. I was waiting for Harold. I didn't forget. Excuse me. Delete my last remark. I don't forget anything. Harold, we waited for you to do the prayer.
Well, what if I hadn't showed up?
Well, we just would have had to wing it. So, folks, this is Harold Hembry. He's my uncle-in-law. His oldest brother married my father's oldest sister. And I'm sure if you live in Kay County, I'm sure you've heard of Hembrys. They've been around. In fact, they still are farming the land they staked out in the land rush. They're a historic Kay County family. Would you mind doing our prayer? Okay, thank you.
Wonderful our Father, your love and faith, that you are the source of our life, the sustainer of our being, and the redeemer of our life. We pause to give thanks for this day and tender blessing. And thank you for this association together, for the work that it does, and for the one who leads in this area and works diligently to make it meet. Bless us now as we gather together. We come in your name. We ask that you bless us, keep us, and use us in this day and all in your service. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Harold. Gary, could I get you to lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you, sir. Everybody, I'm sure, has heard about the push in California, and I think there's 17 other states. By 2035, it's going to be against the law to sell anything but an electric vehicle in those states. Their goal is to get gasoline-powered vehicles, fossil diesel and gasoline, off the road. That is not about the environment. That is about control. In fact, all of this, the food supply shortage, that's about control. the medical. In fact, there's prescription meds that are in short supply. All of this, everything that they're doing is about control. They've all got some noble sounding excuse for it, but they want to control everything. If they can get people out of internal combustion engine vehicles, they'll control our movement. Every one of these electric cars, the Teslas, they can throw a switch somewhere and shut them off. California, which is going to require it, 2 or 3 times in the last several months during the summer, they told people not to recharge their electric cars because the power grid couldn't handle it. So this is, like I said, what this is all about is the control. I want to mention a documentary that I watched just recently. It's called Died Suddenly. Highly recommend it. It's an hour and 8 minutes long. And has anybody heard about these growths that are being pulled out of cadavers' bloodstreams by the undertakers? The doctors didn't find... Hello, Joe. Come on in, have a seat. They're finding growths in the bloodstreams of vaccinated people. They're calling them blood clots, but they're not a classic blood clot. They're some kind of protein growth, and this film shows them pulling them out of the cadavers. The doctors didn't see it, the undertakers, the ones that discovered this, because they couldn't get the blood to drain and they couldn't get the embalming fluid into the veins because the veins were blocked. And the speculation is, and it seems pretty strong, that this is one of the reasons there's been such a spike, especially in young men having strokes and heart attacks. I mean, you got athletes falling dead on the field. There was a story just recent, 17-year-old kid played in a high school football game, and a couple hours later, he had a stroke. So anyway, it's called Died Suddenly. If you're interested, look it up. Also, in that regard, I'm going to read this because it's a direct quote. This is from Opera News. A new study has found that 58% of COVID-19 deaths in August were people who had been vaccinated or received a booster shot. 58%. They've lied to us since the get-go, folks. One of the top people at Pfizer was testifying about a month ago at the European Union in their parliament, and she was questioned how much research and how many studies were done by Pfizer to determine if the vaccination prevented you transferring it to somebody else. They did 0. And that was a lot of their selling point on that is you got to get the shot because you don't kill your grandmother. And she had the weirdest response, and this is a direct quote, I'm sure, because I listened to it 5 or 6 times so I can remember. She said, no, we didn't do that research because we had to move at the speed of science because of the market. First off, what in the hell is the speed of science? I've never even heard that phrase before. And in fact, a lot of the conservative media jumped on that part of her statement. To me, what she said after it is much more damning because of the market. What in the world is Pfizer, who's supposed to be giving us a valid, usable vaccine, being concerned about the market? So, yeah. So anyway, and that number came from a lady named Cynthia Cox, who's with she's the vice president of the Kaiser Family Foundation, Kaiser Permanente in California. They're huge. And this was a quote from the Washington Post. Opera News is how I found it, but this was an excerpt from a Washington Post, not normally known as a conservative outlet for news. All of this is the major part of my motivation for being involved for now 3 years almost. Well, I've been involved for 3 years because I got recruited about this time last year. I didn't schedule a meeting in December because I thought it was better to start off with a new group in January rather than fight the holidays. This kind of stuff worries me to death. Our country is going down the tubes. OK2A is the most effective political action group in the state of Oklahoma, hands down, and we're underfunded. We get more done than groups that have immense budgets. But this is my motivation. They want to register our guns, then they want to confiscate them, and that's always followed by genocide. And I've got a few examples here. In 1911, Turkey instituted gun control. They exterminated 1.5 million Armenians. This is back around the time of World War I, when the exterminations took place. In 1929, the USSR, Russia, passed gun control, and they had it from 1929 up until 1953. There were 20 million dissidents exterminated. It always follows gun confiscation. 1925 in Germany, the Weimar government, which was a good German government before the Nazis took over, they instituted gun registration. People didn't get too worked up because it was a democracy. Well, in 1938, Hitler passed his gun control. The SS and the Gestapo, they just took those files out of the file cabinets and they knew exactly where to go to seize the guns. That led to 6 million dead Jews and upwards of 7 million other people. The Jews weren't the only ones killed in the camps. If the Jews had been armed, there still would have been probably millions of dead Jews, but I bet there wouldn't have been 6 million. Because I'm sure we've all seen the videos. These people they just let them herd them into the gas chambers. I can't imagine that. If you know you're going to die, why not at least get a punch in on somebody? But China, 1935, they got gun control. They had between 20 and 60 million exterminated in China. Cambodia, 1956, they had gun control, and between 75 and 79, 1 million educated people were exterminated. They specifically targeted the intellectual class in Cambodia. And at that time, just the fact that you wore eyeglasses could get you killed. They just assumed if you wore glasses, you were part of the intelligentsia. In Guatemala, they passed gun control in 1964. Between 1964 and 1981, 100,000 Mayan Indians were exterminated. 1970, Uganda passed gun control. Between 1971 and 1979, they had 300,000 Christians exterminated. Similar things in Venezuela, Brazil. The murder rate is up over 30% in UK since they put gun control. Australia, their violent crimes have spiked, and they seized all the guns and destroyed them. So this is the kind of stuff that has me scared and concerned, and that's what's motivated me to get involved with OK2A. Folks, we got to fight. When you're dealing with evil, you've got two choices. You either lay down and they come up and put their foot on your throat, and they've got their foot on your throat, your kids, your grandkids, and every generation downstream. Or you stand up and fight. And let me tell you, kind of a bill. Last year, now that's 10 we got through this year. Last year we got 15. I'm just going to cover a few of the main ones here. Religious institutions cannot be declared non-essential. And I've mentioned this every time I bring this up. We all know about the churches being closed. Has anybody in the room heard of mosques being closed? I've asked that at numerous meetings. Probably at least I've asked that to 400 or 500 people. I have yet to have anybody raise their hand when I ask that question. Does anybody in this room have any doubt that we would have heard about it if the Muslims would have been locked out of their mosques? They'd have been screaming bloody murder, and the press would have been all over it because they're the darlings of the press. We passed a Second Amendment sanctuary for the whole state. We have a number of counties, including Kay County. Sheriff Kelly, I think, is about 2 years ago, declared Kay County a Second Amendment sanctuary. This applies to the whole state with a cutoff of the 1968 Gun Control Act. In other words, we're disputing any gun control bills that have passed since then. You can now carry into a restaurant and bar as long as you're not drinking. We passed a bill that addresses mask and vaccine requirements in education. In other words, they can't require vaccine passports to get into schools and higher education, or they can't require masks. A number of school systems around the state are disregarding this. We passed a bill to allow you to carry a long gun loaded and chambered in your vehicle. Before this passed, if you had a rifle or shotgun in your back seat that had a round in the chamber, technically you were violating Oklahoma statutes. That's no longer the case because of us. We passed a bill. A game warden now needs your permission or a search or a warrant from a judge to put a game camera on your property. Before this, they could come onto your property, install game cameras to spy on you, and they didn't even have to notify you of it, let alone ask your permission. We passed a BB gun bill that allows you, under certain restrictions, to take your kids or grandkids in the backyard and shoot BBs. And as I've said before, you can teach a kid 80 or 90% of everything they need to know about marksmanship and gun safety with a BB gun. We passed a 10th Amendment, a states' rights bill. This didn't give us any more power. This just notified the federal government we were going to be exercising our power under the 10th Amendment to negate their unconstitutional laws and executive orders. Jay Siegel, who some of you have heard at my meetings, he's coming again. He'll be here at my Tuesday meeting in December and my Saturday meeting on the 17th in January. He's the chairman of the state's Powers Committee. It was called the State Rights Committee. He changed the name of it last year because, and this is how he explained it to me, states don't have rights, they have powers. Individual citizens have rights. This guy's a champ, and he's one of the top warriors. You know Jay, don't you? Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a friendly guy. He's one of the easiest legislators I've encountered to talk to, and he's been rock solid on all your veterans bills, hasn't he? Yeah. In fact, the last 2 times I've introduced him, I introduced him with the line, I hope in 4 years I'm able to vote for a Governor Steele. And he hadn't told me not to say that, so I don't know, but that's something we can all pray for. We passed a bill allowing you to use your SDA license to purchase a gun and walk out with it without waiting for the NICS checks. That's not instituted yet because we have to get approval from the ATF. And who knows if and when that will happen, but we've done everything we could here in Oklahoma to make it happen. This is a biggie. Driver escaping crowds, unlawfully blocking roads or their vehicle. You come over a hill in the freeway and there's Antifa or BLM out there blocking the road with a human roadblock. Under proper conditions, you're allowed to use your vehicle as a legal weapon to get out of that crowd. you have to comply with some requirements, number one of which you have to feel threatened of your life or bodily harm. But the governor took a ton of static over that in several of these bills from the media and from the left. Oh, they're going to run over jaywalkers. That's not the case. We passed a bill to prohibit critical race theory in schools. This is another law that a number of the school systems around the country, around the state, are ignoring. We passed a bill requiring if a group wants to have a gun-free event, before this bill passed, all they needed was $10 worth of cardboard and paper signs saying no guns allowed. Now they're required to do three things. One, they have to have an 8-foot security fence completely surrounding the location that they're having the event. They have to have a walk-through metal detector at every gate or port of entry, and they have to have a licensed uniformed police officer manning that metal detector. Now, what this does, this means they got to spend tens of thousands of dollars if they want to have a gun-free event. OK2A has taken some criticism from some of the Second Amendment purists in the state, saying, well, that bill, you're promoting gun control. No. That bill, in fact, the mayor of Tulsa said it would cost him at least $30,000 to comply with this. That means if Moms Demand Action or some other harebrained group wants to have a gun-free event, they've got to spend the money. That's the point of this entire bill. We had a House bill that said religious institutions cannot be declared non-essential, and our own John Pfeiffer had a bill requiring local or Oklahoma law enforcement to support ICE. So that's just what we've done in the last 2 years. We have I've got 3-4 pages here of bills that we didn't get through this year. We will be back at the well with those this coming session, which starts in February. So this is the kind of stuff that OK2A has done. Now, I want to cover some of the stuff that we've done in the past. Businesses were given immunity from liability for allowing patrons to carry. That was one of their big arguments. They put up a no gun sign. Well, we'll be liable if somebody uses a gun in our business. Now they're not liable. Employees were given immunity from liability for employers were given immunity from liability for allowing employees to carry. Places of worship were given immunity from liability for allowing carry in their facilities. And there were cases where somebody used a gun in a church to stop a shooting, and the church got sued and put them out of existence. That can't happen here in Oklahoma. Now, these laws only apply here in Oklahoma. OK2A's mission is to build a legal wall around the state of Oklahoma to prohibit the federal government from coming in with executive orders and laws that are unconstitutional. I personally am paying very little attention to what's going on in the national scene because we don't have any influence there. We have influence in Oklahoma, and that's our mission. We had clarification before OK2A. If a business posted a no firearms sign and you went in carrying a gun, you could be charged criminally for that. Now they can't. If they see you're carrying a gun, they ask you to leave, you politely get up and quietly leave. You don't argue with them. If you don't leave, then you can be charged for trespass. But you can't be charged because you've got a gun in a business that says no guns. Now, of course, there are places where you can't carry a gun: schools, federal buildings, courthouses, jails, prisons, and so forth. But this opened the door for people. Well, that's why they call it concealed. If you're concealed, how are they even going to know you're carrying a gun? We added places of business to the castle doctrine. The castle doctrine allows you to use deadly force if somebody enters your castle through force or just without your permission. Your castle is defined by the walls and the doorway of your home. We pushed for 2 years. We didn't get it through. We're going to push again this year to move that line of enforcement from your doorway to the edge of your property, which would mean if you're on a quarter-acre lot in town, you'd have a quarter-acre castle. Now, that doesn't mean you can just shoot somebody because they come on your property, but it gives you legal protection if you do have to defend your family or your property and you're not inside your home. A bill, as I mentioned, to allow you to keep your guns locked in a vehicle at a VOTEC. That applies to schools as well, as long as they're locked in your car. It has to be locked. We also got a bill passed that a motorcycle, that applies to a motorcycle. That was originally passed and only applied to vehicles, cars, and trucks. The motorcycle has to have some facility to lock it up, saddlebags or under the seat or something. But that applies to motorcycles as well. We restored private property rights to private schools, so they are able to set their own weapons policies for their facilities. Private schools were given immunity from liability for allowing staff and visitors to carry guns. It's illegal now because of OK2A. All of this is because of us. It's illegal for a state or local government to confiscate or restrict otherwise legal use of weapons, ammunition, and accessories during a declared state of emergency. Includes the ability to file a civil lawsuit against the parties involved if this law is broken. In other words, if a policeman comes into your home and seizes your guns because there's an emergency going on, you can personally sue that police officer. In New Orleans, when they had that, what was that hurricane in New Orleans? Katrina, yeah. They went door to door in New Orleans seizing guns from people's houses because it was an emergency. They can't do that in Oklahoma, and if they do it, you can personally sue the people that did it. It gives you a pretty heavy stick with this, with the authorities on this. We got clarification of a law to include ammo and sections requiring employers to allow employees to keep their weapons in their locked car while at work. This was in response to a hospital policy forbidding employees from having ammunition in their car while they're at work. They allowed weapons, but no ammo. Might as well be better off carrying a baseball bat. The law previously only mentioned firearms, so we got that changed. Private property rights restored by recognizing the right of property owners to carry an unconcealed weapon without a permit on their property outside of their dwelling place for the purpose of self-defense. There was a guy that was arrested. They were investigating on a drug charge. They showed up at his house. He had a gun on him. They went in the house to search, and they told him to step outside. He stepped outside, and then they arrested him for carrying a weapon, and he wasn't inside his castle. So there's a big catch-22 for you. We got now where SDA licenses are mailed directly to a first-time applicant rather than to the sheriff. Before that, you got your SDA, you had to go to the sheriff's to pick it up. Now it comes directly to you. Residents and military personnel who are out of the country no longer have to surrender their permit. We've got a bill passed allowing for suppressed hunting. We got a bill passed. People from non-permitting states, constitutional carry states, may carry their concealed firearm in Oklahoma using their driver's license as a permit. In other words, and this was before we had constitutional carry here, somebody from a constitutional carry state could constitutionally carry here as long as they had their driver's license and their state allowed it. Folks, Don Spencer is down at the legislature every second they're in session. And he's dealing with lawyers. Has anybody tried to read a bill passed by the legislature? Yeah, it's, I can't understand. In fact, that was one of my major reasons when I very first joined OK2A, because I could get a paragraph or 3-sentence synopsis of whatever the bills are, because I read that legal stuff and my brain just locks up. It's like I'm reading a book on calculus. It doesn't make any, they've got so many ifs and ands in there. it's hard for somebody that's not a lawyer to understand. In fact, sometimes it's hard for lawyers to understand what the bills say. But these bills get passed, and these wording issues come up after they get passed. Nobody thought, to allow people to carry a gun, lock a gun in their car at a Votech. Well, of course it would have ammo. But the other side nitpicked. They found that one little crack in the law, and they utilized it until we stopped it. We make things happen at the Capitol. We established a Second Amendment Day in Oklahoma. Does anybody know what the Second Amendment Day is? I'm going to tell you. It's June 28th. So you can put that on your calendar, something to celebrate. We got open carry passed. We got a law prohibiting law enforcement from detaining or removing the weapon from an SDA permit holder. In fact, Don just had a video and it was talking about, that's one of the things we're going to be addressing to more detail this session. Prohibiting law enforcement and local authorities from treating open carry as disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, or any other similar offense against the public order. And this, in fact, we had a big rally 2 years ago in Fairview because the local police chief got on somebody, was in a park, had a gun, and told him he had to leave. So we had a rally, and that ended up with the chief of police and the city council writing a letter of apology to the person and to OK2A. So, and we get out in the trenches when we need to make this stuff happen. We got a law requiring businesses, if they don't allow carry, they've got to mark their doors. So that lets you know whether you want to carry or whether you need to carry concealed in that business. We removed an OSBI administrative fine on SDA permit holders from failing to notify police they were carrying. This was essentially a double fine because you had the criminal fine and the OSBI fine. Now the permit holder is only punished once. Folks, I hope that I've gotten the impression across of everything that we've got done in this state in the last, 15 years. We've got to get our state locked. There's been a lot of talk about the votes, and there's been stories about coming out of Arizona and other places. Oklahoma, no system is perfect, but Oklahoma has probably the most honest, uncorrupted electoral system in the United States. I'm on the election board up there, and again, nothing is perfect, but we're definitely ahead of the game. First, does anybody have any questions over the stuff I've covered about these past bills? Well, yes, sir. Claude, hey, how you doing? The vaccine passports? Yes. Can you talk a little louder? Well, we got a bill passed last year prohibiting that in education. And we're going to be pushing that again to expand that. That's just like Nazi Germany or the Russia. They walk up, you got to show your papers.
Well, the teachers union in some of the cities are trying to say if the kids want to go to school, they have to take.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they can't.
And they don't even need the child.
We've had school systems here in Oklahoma disregarding the law that we passed. That's how the liberals work. They get a law passed, they enforce it to the nth degree. We get a law passed and they just ignore it. In fact, there's a famous quote from Andrew Jackson, who is, his quote was, well, the Supreme Court has made their ruling, now let them enforce it. Well, if the executive isn't going to enforce a ruling from the courts, it's pretty much null and void. So this is something that we've got to push on. Um, Everybody understand what a red flag law is? Does everybody know what that is? Okay. Um, we're all volunteers, folks. Don Spencer is the only paid employee, and he gets $500 a week. You can make that work in fast food, and he pays his own expenses out of that, and he drives all over the state. In fact, he's just about worn his car out driving around the state. He only has been getting paid for the last year and a half. Before that, he did this for years for free. The rest of us, it's all volunteer. And I'm personally putting in 7 days a week on this. And every day I put several hours in on it. And that includes same deal when I'm traveling all over the state, speaking about OK2A, attending meetings. I'm always the first speaker. I offer to be the first speaker at any new chapter. In fact, next Tuesday, I'm going to be in Watonga. We've got our very first meeting of our new Blaine County chapter coming up. So, folks, it's important that you understand that nobody's making any money off of this deal. In fact, if anybody's got any questions at all about our finances, you can go to the State Ethics Commission website, and you can click on and view every one of our quarterly reports that we filed for the last year, many years. Each one of those quarterly reports gives a breakdown for every donation that was made and every expense that went out. So if there's any questions in your minds or anybody you talk to about whether this is some kind of scam to make money, it is absolutely not. Now, if you do go to that website, I'll warn you in advance, it's a very user-unfriendly website. I had to call and get a lady on the phone, and she walked me through, and they're very nice. She spent probably 20 or 30 minutes on the phone with me, getting me where I could view these reports. I was just curious about it. So folks, it's important. The shirts that I sell, I'm going to have caps available here shortly. All of that profit goes directly into our kitty to pay the expenses we incur. And folks, we need to spend more money. We need more brochures. We need more printing. We spend a lot of money with attorneys. We're getting to the point that our accountant, especially, she needs some hired help. She's doing all this volunteer, and when she started doing it, there were maybe 40 or 50 people statewide involved in this. Now we have thousands. So anyway, yes, Joe.
I wanted to ask a question about, there's a publication called the Ponca City Monthly, ran by Kelsey Wagner. And it's a free publication.
Uh-huh.
And this publication promoted the vaccines, and it promoted a lot of the other things that the mainstream media promotes. But, they promote it, it's free. But the person that's running it is running for city commissioner in Ponca City.
Uh-huh.
So, to me, it's like, how's that magazine free, the ink, the paper. So, there's some.
Somebody's paying for it.
Yes, some nefarious forces at Ponca City.
A lot of advertising.
Oh, okay. Advertising. Okay, well, that makes sense. That's how most publications do support themselves.
And they had one of the council members from the Ponca tribe on there, and one of them got 5 shots and still tested positive for the COVID-19. So,
Yeah, I mentioned.
They promote a lot of bad things in that magazine.
You're a friend of mine, he's only 27 years old, he's taking all the stock and he got.
Yeah, boy, if you didn't know better, you'd think the government lied to us. The problem is there's a lot of people that are taking the word from the CDC and the FDA as gospel. And I mean, they've been proved over and over again that they're lying. There's a book out by Robert Kennedy Jr., and this is probably the only thing in his life I've agreed with him on, but it's about Fauci. I've got it in my Audible. I've started it twice, and it's infuriating, the stuff that Fauci's been involved in. Yeah, that's right, the real Dr. Fauci. And he's made millions and millions of dollars off of this.
Nice looking thing that came down with me, and Dr. Paul was involved with that.
Uh,
We didn't change something and it came over. Nancy Johnson still didn't change.
Well, and I'm sure most of you have heard about the useless experiments they were doing on beagle puppies. I mean, the guy's a piece of work. Folks, and I've mentioned this before, Dan Bongino, does everybody in here know who Dan Bongino is? He calls this the 30 front war. And that's exactly what we're dealing with. We run over here and stamp out one fire, and they were like 3 more behind us. They're coming at us from so many different directions. But folks, you can't get discouraged and you can't give up. We've got to fight every day to save this country. I turned 75 a couple of weeks ago, and every day I'm thanking the Lord that I'm 75, because I'm not going to have to deal with this crap as long as you youngsters are. And to me, anybody under the age of 70 is a youngster. Are you there yet, Gary? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm amazed that I made it this far, and my sister's probably even more amazed. She knows my lifestyle. And I've been blessed with prevenient grace. And if you don't know what that is, you can come up and talk to me afterwards. Have we got any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Okay, Ron? Yeah.
Well, on the federal level, we're seeing a lot of encroachment into our Second Amendment rights. I think it is high time that each and every one of us get a hold of our Oklahoma delegation and start pounding on their heads to repeal the 1934 National Firearms Act.
We're working on it.
Folks, you cannot contact Washington representatives and state capitol representatives too much. They respond to contacts. I was told that at the state capitol here, they look at every email as representing 100 voters and every phone call representing 200. So yeah, you're exactly right. Now this is one of the things, those of you that have been around for a while know that Don has been real good during session of sending out text messages. Call your representative, call your senator, call the governor. In fact, he had one deal here last year. Call the governor's office. 2 hours later, he sent another one out. Stop calling the governor's office. We melt the phone lines at the state capitol, and this gets their attention. So, and this app is going to be wonderful, because we'll have a huge pipeline of communication with everybody that's got the app on their phone. And when you get those messages to call your state senator, call your state representative, call the governor, what I do, if that comes and I'm driving, the first place that I can pull over, I'll pull over, because it usually doesn't take but 2 or 3 minutes to send a quick message to Pfeiffer, Coleman, and Governor Stitt. That's personally what I do, because if I don't do it, I forget about it. And then if on those kind of deals, if you put it off for 2 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours, it's probably too late for it to have any influence. But you're exactly right. Folks, a representative republic, not a democracy, and this is how we're represented by these people. I voted for the Republicans. I voted for some of them, and I kind of had to hold my nose to do it. But a bad Republican is better than a good Democrat in my book. So, but you're right. That's a good suggestion. And Dr. Cope wants to talk to us. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Terry. I think we're all sold on the idea that OK2A is essential. Another organization that I believe is extremely important is U.S. Law Shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you are going to have anything to do with self-defense, there may be a time when you're going to need some legal help. I think everybody remembers the church shooting in Texas about 2 years ago. A little church, somebody came in, started shooting. One of the men in the audience was an NRA instructor, but he drew his gun and dropped that guy. Now, was he operating in self-defense? Was he completely innocent? What was his legal bill? Almost $350,000. And he was completely innocent. That's our legal system. Fortunately, he was a member of U.S. Law Shield. U.S. Law Shield covered every dime.
Who went after?
President Biden.
Well, you've got
It has
to.
to be the family of the guy shot, the shooter's family. The guy walked in with a shotgun under a trench coat. He killed one person right away, shot another person who died a few days later, and shot a third person who he didn't kill. But he was with a 12-gauge shotgun. That's some pretty serious armament in a church.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious. I would assume.
Well, first of all, anytime there is an incident with the firearm, even if you are completely innocent, you're defending yourself or somebody else, there is going to be a legal proceeding. You're going to have representation. That's going to cost you. And lawyers who defend you in firearm situations don't come cheap. Now,
Not every lawyer is
And-
good at that.
right.
You don't want a guy who does real estate contracts to handle that kind of thing.
In Oklahoma, we have our branch of U.S. Law Shield is excellent. Our lawyers are top notch
They've never lost a case.
in Oklahoma.
700 and something cases last I heard.
Yeah, of course, they're defending people who are defending themselves. But saying all that, if you're not a member, seriously think about it. I have literature back here about it. We have had a representative from U.S. Law Shield here at many of our meetings. They kind of hard for them to get up here every time. So I bring literature and speak up for them because I'm a SDA instructor, and so they allow me to promote their company in all that.
I took Lynn's class when I got my permit, which I need to get on, which renews, it expires next.
I renewed today.
Yeah.
It was coming up in January, and I looked at
If you carry a gun and you don't have some protection, I think U.S. Law Shield's the best, but there's 5 or 6 people who do this, companies who do this.
a couple of other good
Yeah.
ones.
If you're carrying a gun without some kind of legal protection, it's the same as driving your car or truck without insurance.
Well, if you defend yourself with a baseball bat, you're going to go to court.
Yeah.
U.S. Law Shield is going to defend you.
This is one of the things we pushed for 2 years. We haven't gotten yet. We're going to push it again this year, is to require DAs to have a certain level of evidence before they can charge somebody. Because what some of these crappy DAs do, they'll take somebody who was involved in a righteous self-defense shooting and they file charges on them. Well, that person, number one, they got to come up with bail money. Number two, they've got to hire an attorney for $200, $300, $400 an hour. And this has happened many times. The day it goes to court, the DA dismisses charges. He did that specifically to financially drain that citizen. If you have U.S. Law Shield, that's not a concern. They don't have any limits, And their main attorney, Robert Robles, is hands down the top firearms attorney in the state. He works with Don, and he helps Don write and word bills. Don has been working on bills for months now, getting ready for the session that starts in February. But if you got any questions, Glenn knows as much about it as anybody, and it's a good deal. Also,
One last thought here.
oh yeah,
What they have been doing from the reps that come and sign you up, or if I give you the discount code, you get 2 months free. They are changing that to 30 days free. I still have these cards. I'm not sure when they're going to make the full switch, but I still have this promotion as well as the new one that they just sent me this last week. So they are going to change their promotion slightly. So if you're not a member, take advantage of this.
we also have applications. If you're not a member of OK2A, I've got applications back there. Memberships start at $25 a year. We also have applications for the Ponca City Rifle and Pistol Club, which is about halfway between here and Tonopah, about a mile and a half south of the old highway.
Well, 3.5.
Huh?
3.5.
Is that far south? Oh, okay. Well, that's why I have Glenn talking about this stuff, because he knows. I just run my mouth. But it's a great range, and it's the most reasonably priced rifle and pistol range I've ever heard of. So if you're interested in that, Glenn, you can talk to Glenn about that. Anything? Yeah, Joe?
Does OK2A have any candidates for that school board that's coming up for Ponca City?
Yeah. Wouldn't mind having somebody endorse, but I don't know anything about it, and I don't have time to research Ponca City School Board. I gotta know, just keep it up with what I'm on top of now.
What's that school board of city?
I think they got both of them coming up.
Say, what?
I mean, who is the lady running?
But
Hey,
Kelsey Wagner,
what is it, Suzanne?
Kelsey Wagner's running for city commissioner.
Is she somebody that we'd be interested in supporting? No? Okay. See, I don't know. And that's, if you've got any information, you can pass it along. And if you know of any candidates that are on our side of the fence, have them contact me, because very likely we could endorse them. Just, we would need to know. And I just don't have time to dig in and do that kind of research on these local deals. We've got another election coming up in February. And there's sales tax election. I think that's probably all going to come at the same time. But there's a sales tax election coming up for Ponca City as well. Also,
Yeah.
yeah, that's in March. That's statewide. Yeah, Stipp, the Republican Party pushed to not have that vote in the November election because you think it'll bring out the potheads if they're voting for recreational pot? So they put it in March. I'm glad, because that would have brought in a bunch of people that would have voted against the conservative side. In fact, I live in Tonopah. Tonopah's slogan is Wheat Heart of Oklahoma. Got the little heart with the wheat on the top of the grain elevator. I've been telling people we need to change that to Weed Heart. We've got multiple dispensaries, a little town of 3,200 people. We've got dispensaries and we got grow facilities. And of course, I heard a lot of the grow facilities are pulling stakes and moving to Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi just passed even, I guess, an even more screwed up grow law than we have here. So, huh? Yeah, Hennessy. Yeah. Well, they said in the article that the sheriff's department said it was an international operation, so I thought it must be Italian, international.
Yeah, maybe not Italian.
Wu, the guy's name
Maybe a
was
little
Wu
further
Chen.
south.
Well, when they had his picture and his name was Wu Chen, I said, hey, folks, I'm right again. There's another Italian. Yes.
This deal with the second commissioner that she was talking about, there's a downtown group that's
guess you could call it progressive. Wants to kind of take over down there, younger people, not necessarily conservative. One of their big projects that just ended up is they put an ice skating rink in. But rather than put it in front of the Civic Center or on the parking lot, put those bricks and donors at Veterans Plaza. Tell me how that honors veterans and honors those people.
Yeah, it's right down in the heart
Ice
of
skating
downtown.
rink.
Right.
On Memorial.
Well, and that freeze and thaw ain't gonna do those bricks any good either.
But it's not.
I bet you anything is gonna have to be some repair.
They're going on this.
Oh,
It's not a water.
I didn't even know they have artificial ice.
Yeah.
Can you put that on your urban?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's plastic.
That's terrible.
That's not the point. The point is
No,
they put it on Veterans
Yeah.
Plaza.
Covered that.
There's
Which
thousands
should
of
be
places
on
in
the
Palm
website.
City they could have put it. Is there anything you'd like to address the crowd on?
Yeah, I would, two things. One of them,
This is Gary Miles, in case you don't know, he is the hardest working DFW commander in the state. He is the guy who puts the entire Veterans Day events here in Ponca City together. And Ponca City had the largest parade in the state, thanks to this gentleman. Gary? you got-
Well, let's give him a hand.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm on the Oklahoma Department of Veterans Affairs Commission. We've got some real threats right now from some people coming from Capitol building trying to screw the veterans. I'll tell you that Jay Stiegel, Ty Byrne, the two guys that come to those meetings every month, it is there. So look over those guys' shoulders, keep them in line. We just had a meeting last week, and they got into it. And the guy was trying to take over, and change the way things are done, very good. Veterans, Jay Stiegel's been there and always will be.
What types of things are they trying to do to screw the veterans?
One of the big things, and that's why Joel ran for governor, is they want to privatize the 7 veterans homes. They're beautiful homes, they're fantastic facilities, and every penny that goes into those homes from the Veterans Commission, or any penny brought back in, is invested back in. The governor pulled him in and told him he wanted to privatize. So the guy we're having problems with on the commission, who they fired General Costello and they fired Master Chief Van Skyver off the commission and replaced them with at-large people. One of the guys has an extensive history of managing living corporations. And that is the guy now. He wants to get rid of the VFW, the American Legion, the Purple Heart, and Disabled Veterans of Oklahoma, because he said we're a restrictive organization. Means we won't let people in. In fact, I'm glad I was not being able to join the Purple Heart. I'm not a member of the Paralyzed Veterans.
Yeah.
But he said we're restrictive because we won't let everybody in.
Stitt endorsed this guy or put him in it?
Endorsed him, 3 other guys. Stitt just appointed a guy, Secretary of Military Affairs for the state, Veterans Affairs, who claims his DD-214 is top secret. I don't know if you all know what a DD-214 is.
It's impossible, isn't it?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible, but he said, my DD-214 is top secret. And the legislature appointed him anyway. And some of the people that appointed him were people, and this is my second point, don't be offended by this, but when somebody like the OK2A said, this is the candidate we endorse, that may very well be, but just because they endorse them doesn't mean they're not crooked, thieving, corrupt individuals. So don't take an endorsement by anybody. Perhaps what they mean is, I'm not endorsing this guy because he's the best candidate. I'm endorsing him because this other guy is even worse than he is.
That happens on many endorsements. I was gonna address that. Thank you for bringing that up. I supported Stitt, as everyone in this room knows. I give him about an 80% grade, which is a B,
that entire 20% is because of what he's done with the veterans. I don't know what in the hell he was thinking. That was totally wrong. But Joy Hoffmeister, I don't care what she says when she's campaigning, would have been a disaster. But that is how it is with endorsements. It's more often than not, it's the lesser of two evils of a choice. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but right after Joy Hoffmeister got elected, she went to China on the public dollar to study their school systems, how they train teachers, and how they track students. She brought all of that Chinese communist crap back and put it in the school system here. Our schools have plummeted in our ratings, and then she wanted to run the state. So that was the choice. I met Joel, and I thank you for inviting me to your home for that get-together. Joel's a great guy, and you know what? He came in second. And Sherwood, who campaigned hard and heavy all over the state, he beat Sherwood by over 1,000 votes. And it's because he had a message. And, well, in fact, I talked to him briefly at the deal at the park after the parade a couple of weeks ago. And he told me, he said he knew that he wasn't going to get elected, but he wanted to get his views out there. And he's a great guy. I think he'd make a good governor, but he didn't have a chance. And the way it worked, it was going to either be Hoffmeister or Stitt. And that's why our endorsement on 2A stuff, Stitt has been 110%. He signed every one of our bills that's gotten to his desk. The very first bill he signed was the constitutional carry. He took static for that and heat, the anti-red flag law, all of the 2A bills he signed, he took heat from the left on it. And, well, you know how it works. If somebody's taking heat backing you, when it's your turn to back them, you either do it, well, whether you agree with all of their deals, and he was completely wrong on this veterans deal. I wasn't aware of it until I met people, most of them through you. And I don't understand that. It's just stupid politics on his part.
They smell money.
Yeah.
Our budget's 151 billion a year, so.
Well, that sounds like a conflict of interest, having a guy involved with that runs nursing home.
Well, the thing that gets me is when Stitt was running, the other side, the lefties, it was all that he's crooked. He's got all this crooked crap on. Then he does something like this, and the guy who is there now, who runs or owns assisted living, if that happens, the first thing I think of is there's money going out the back door to Stitt.
What do you think of the whole barbecue feud, or the tourism deal, or the education thing? He does the same thing over and over. Then when they get caught, he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it's like how much of this stuff is going back to Stitt? Now, Stitt versus Hoffman.
Oh, yes.
You know that she's got more coming from anybody else than he does. You know, so it's like all the rats are running the place.
That's only on a state level. Look at the national level.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing I mentioned to you, I don't know if you read the Daily Oklahoman today. The Daily Oklahoman has about 3 or 4 pages about the shooting in Colorado Springs. And they've got 3 or 4 on Biden telling everybody why this is another reason we need to start controlling this whole thing. That paper, if you read the Daily Oklahoman, always read the Tulsa World just so you know that it really is the truth. But there's got to be 5 pages dedicated to gun control, gun violence, and well, then the deal with Stitt's son, of course. But that's all comes out after the election and a little bitty thing in the back. But there's a whole section on nothing but control of the soul.
Yeah, I've got serious problems with Stitt over this and some of the other stuff. But again, it's Hoffmeister. She would have been a total disaster. And I wouldn't trust the things she told the veterans, because she's going to tell you whatever she needs to tell you to try and get your support.
I will tell you, Bill, the endorsements are dangerous, but Jay Spiegel's got to be one of the finest men I've ever met. And that old boy has got his eye on everything that goes on down there. And, he didn't mind standing up and taking.
And he has been traveling the entire state. He's speaking at OK2A meetings and others, plus his band. I have yet to, have you ever heard his band? It's Jay Stiegel and the Part-Timers. And it's what country swing, western swing. You know Red Stiegel? Have you ever heard of Red Stiegel? That's his uncle. And I'd love to hear Jay. Because they got a statue of Ray Stiegel in Fort Worth. I mean, he's a pretty big name. But I asked Jay after the second time I made that remark about my dream is to be able to vote for a Governor Steele. I said, would you prefer me not to talk about that? And he kind of smiled and he said, I'll consult my advisors. So he didn't tell me no. And I mean that. I mean, I wasn't just saying that to curry favor with my speaker. I can't think of a more qualified, more honest, upright person than Jay Stiegel, and I've met a bunch of these people. Nathan Dahm would be his counterpart in the Senate, but Jay is a lot more active about getting out and meeting people. Personally, I can't help but think that that is part of his motivation for doing all this traveling and speaking all over the state. And here he's going to be here next month in Tonkawa, my Tuesday meeting, and next month at this meeting on the 17th, the third Saturday. Yeah, yes.
Terry, it just dawned on me when we were talking about endorsements
Yeah,
and the OK2A, and so many of us
Either stay away or don't have the time to get involved in local politics, city councils, school boards, everything. What popped into my mind is, what if OK2A had a drive to not necessarily get candidates, but for members who are running in local elections that OK2A could endorse? And how might we do that? So that you get this crazy lady in Ponca City, and all of a sudden somebody's running against her with OK2A.
well, that's what, if anybody knows, has everybody got my phone number and my card? In fact, everybody should have 2 or 3 of my cards. You don't have a card yet. You would get one off. In fact, it's better yet. No, that's okay. I got cards. I can get new cards because I got 2 new titles.
What do you do in Georgia?
Oh, you live in Georgia?
Yeah.
Well, we're supporting long distance, Herschel Walker.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, and you need a GA to, is the GA for Georgia, is that your 2-state, or 2-letter endorsement, or abbreviation for Georgia? GA?
GA.
Okay, you need a GA to, and if you have any thoughts about putting something like this together, then call. And it says right next to my phone, 24/7, the meeting that, if I'm asleep, if I'm in a meeting and you go to my voicemail, I have it on silent. There are 2 kinds of people in the world, those who control their phones, that's me, and there's those like my baby sister, whose phone controls her. I called her and woken her up. Why don't you turn your phone off, your nose, I might miss a call. So anyway, you can call me anytime. That's me just blowing my mouth.
If we, people here, I mean, think in a little town, Blackwell, Ponca City, any of the other smaller towns.
Yeah.
If we know someone who is running for a local city council, whatever it might be, how do we get their name in front of, to just get to you and say, I've got Joe Blow here, and I think he's really a good guy, and how can we endorse him?
Well, this last election, Don called me about a couple of local endorsements. And if I don't know, I'll just tell him I don't know. But I also have some people I can call. Suzanne's well informed on Ponca City. Gary is well informed on everything concerning the veterans. Well, you're the man on the veterans operations here.
It's oversimplification, but when in doubt, vote for the vet.
That's good advice, most of the time. So, get the word to me, I get it to Don. Don's got less time than I do to pay attention to these local races.
Sure.
So what he does, he relies on his local people, me in Kay County, for instance, and I rely on you to let me know, because like I said, I got zero time to invest in researching the school board or the city council. I do have Rob Bodick that I can call, and I trust him. He's a good, solid conservative, and I trust his advice. And a couple of times I've asked him something, and he's either said, I can't talk about that, or I don't know. He's not a BSer. But yeah, if you've got any information on local stuff, the offer is open for me all the time. Let me know, and we can go from there. But OK2A likes endorsing, and I know that the state endorsement was an issue for the veterans, and I understand that. And like I said, I can't.
Well, we vote, like you said, what's your choice? You got no other alternative anyway.
Well, and how many times in your life have you had to hold your nose when you catch your vote? Sometimes that's more often than not. And, you know, I would never ask a vet who they voted for, but I understand the ones who voted against him, but it's kind of a case of cut your nose off, cut your head off to spite your face. And it's just a shame that that was the position we were in. Sherwood had a lot of support, especially in the rural areas with OK2A. And I like Mark Sherwood, and he seemed like a solid guy. I like Joel Pencil. He's a great guy. But when it comes down to you can vote your heart in the primary elections all you want. In fact, that's probably the best thing to vote when you're voting in your primaries. But when it comes to the general, you've got to vote with your brain. And we've got to get the right people in there. And sometimes the right people are only right 80% of the time. But 80% in our system is pretty good rating. I voted for people this time that had about 10% in my book. But, you know, it is what it is. Thomas Jefferson said, a republic is a bad form of government, but everything else is so much worse. That's a paraphrase, but that was the gist of what he said. And this is, folks, what we're doing here in Oklahoma. OK2A is the only group that is anywhere near as effective as we are. And we've got a bunch of people working hard. Like I said, I'm doing 7 days a week on this. My sister can testify to that. And every day I put in hours on this. Some days it might only be 3 or 4, 2 or 3, other days 12. But this is my mission in my old age. I am blessed. The Lord dropped this whole new career in my lap when I was 72, 3 years ago. And it's something that's exciting, it's fun, and I feel like we're doing some good. Well, we are doing good. We got these bills passed here. And I'm 75 years old, and every day I get up and I have fun and excitement in my life. How many 75-year-olds can say that? You do too, don't you? Never bored, and I've always got something important to do. And man, I'll tell you what, that feels great at age 75. Most people at 75 are sitting around watching TV, maybe go bowling once or twice a month. And so I just feel so blessed to have the Lord bring this to me. I've had a crazy life. My life, I've been the steel ball and the pinball machine. My sister can testify to that. And I realized about 6 months ago, my whole life, the Lord has been preparing me through my crazy lifestyle, which drove our father, the accountant, nuts. He's been preparing me for me to be who I am here and now doing what I'm doing. And man, I'll tell you what, folks, it feels good to be 75 and know your feet are on the path the Lord wants you on. And so this is the kind of gratification you can get from being involved with this. And the easiest thing for y'all to be involved is come to meetings and talk to your friends and family about coming to the meetings. So anything else? Folks, thanks so much for getting out in the weather. And, I want to do something. Stephen, could I get you to do a group picture of us? If y'all don't mind, if you don't want to be in a picture, that's fine.